Hey, Christian, how you going?
Hey, hi Nick, how are you? How are you, everyone? Thanks for having me on. It's a wonderful wet and windy afternoon here down in Dunsborough, and I'm
So
all tucked up.
you're what, 5:30 p.m.,
5:30,
2 hours behind us,
5:30.
yeah? So
Yep, 5:32 at the moment, and yeah, just a little bit behind you guys. So you probably had your dinner and you're probably getting into a wine or a beer or something like that. I'm here with my coffee mug. If you believe that, you'll believe anything.
coffee, yes, very good. Inspiration,
Inspiration mug.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, just tell us a little bit about, just before we start with the photographs, just tell us a little bit about your decision to move to the SL2. Because I mean, you and I have spoken about these sorts of things over many, many years, but
Mm.
and you can blame me if you like for the transition, but there must have been some sort of fundamental reason that made you shift from the much larger medium format style of camera to basically this. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll get into some of the photographs.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah. Look, I was using a medium format camera before moving to Leica, and I mean, it was a fantastic camera. It was a great system. It did some amazing things for my landscapes. I was able to get really beautiful high resolution photos. But there was always those other things that I couldn't do with it when it was an older system. So it was a CCD sensor, so I didn't have the opportunity to do long, really long exposures and night photography and high ISO stuff. So I always felt like I was the poor cousin. I'd be going out taking these workshops, and people would be off doing. Well, I know in particular when we were in I think it was Sweden, there was a whole lot of aurora going off, and everyone was out there shooting away, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and they were still shooting this stuff, and I'm sitting there with my camera that I had at the time, and I couldn't do anything with it, and I was freezing. I was sitting in the car, and I was going, wish you would hurry up. And okay, the aurora is kind of the same now. It's it's pretty bright and it's beautiful. Yes, fantastic. You got the shot. Let's go back to the hotel, please. So I think
Can we go now?
yeah. So at that point, I thought I need to get a system that can do more stuff. And that when the SL2 was released, and I found out that it had the high res mode, that was like, because I was always concerned that the Leica didn't have enough resolution for what I wanted to do. The SL anyway. And then when I found out, it was 47 megapixels. Two, it had the high resolution mode. It was like, well, okay, I'm gonna give this a go. And of course, you and I went out on a shoot to Malawa, and I know you handed me one of your Leicas for just a little bit of play with, and I was going, oh my god, this thing actually it focuses, and it's like, oh, this is easy. This is what real photography is all about. I was just so used to having this thing that I couldn't focus because I'm looking through the lens, and my eyesight's not so great anymore. There was no live view, nothing like that. No, the autofocus was really average. So yeah, that was the thing. I just got to a point where I needed to have more versatility, and that's what the SL2 gave me. And look, I haven't looked back since. I've been making big prints, and you've seen some of those big prints that are taken shot in the high res mode, not even the high res mode, even just in the standard mode. There's enough resolution there to do anything. I've just got an exhibition hanging in my gallery at the moment of all my recent workshop with the SL2. And I've made big prints, and I don't see any real difference between that and what I was shooting before in quality. If you use the right techniques, if you look after your files and you enlarge using the right software. I mean, I'm using gigapixel AI for all my enlargements, and that is that's the duck's nuts. That is I'm making 2 meter prints from my drone, from a 20 megapixel drone shot. And they look great. So
well, that does actually answer a question that was waiting that I was going to ask you, which was from Rod Neep, who was asking you about moving from 100 megapixels to less than half that number. Has this affected your approach to shooting and printing to capture detail? Well, I think we've answered that question in detail. And I would also, before we go on, draw your attention to a video that's on our YouTube channel, which specifically looks at the high resolution mode of the SL2. And in that video, there's a sequence that Christian shot of himself watching a print come off his printer. And then we've got a sort of zoom in thing into the image that he sent me that print was made of, and it gives you an idea of what does it come up to, 284 megabytes or some megapixels or something. 47 times, no, 187
yeah,
megapixels.
187 megapixels.
Yeah, which gives you about a gigabyte when you open it
Yep.
up in the 16-bit TIFF. So it's really big, and the images are just razor sharp. So I think we can tick that one as answered. And then, you know what? Why don't we get into some photographs now that we've found out why you moved, and then we can see the results. So I'm going to swap screens here so that we can all see my other screen. So that should just pop us down into the bottom left-hand corner. And you can, there we go, got your name on it.
Hey, look at that.
All right, let me just go to the first image then. So if you just want to talk us through some of these images, and we start with landscapes, then we get onto some slightly different work. Tell us a little bit about this picture.
Well, I mean, the reason I put this one up is because it was actually handheld. So that's the other thing that I knew that it had its in-body stabilized sensor. And so, you know, you and I had talked about that. You said, look, I've taken some shots at a half a second, or I think you even got about 1 second. I think you mentioned. So the first time I got the camera, I went down to Canal Rocks. This is another place called White Up Rocks, or Mitchell Rocks. And I got the camera and thought, get it off the tripod, just trust what Nick said, go have a crack. So I got down there, and look, I was very careful. I was very still. So I would get the camera strap around my neck, and I'd stretch it out really tight, and kind of, you know, get my elbows in and get quite a firm stance, a good stance, and shoot the shots. And if you just keep taking a whole bunch, invariably, some of them weren't sharp, but there was a lot that were sharp, and it's like, well, come on. And we're talking about a half a second exposure, 1 second exposure, a quarter of a second, and I find that the best smoky water effect is probably around a quarter of a second, 1/8 of a second anyway. So half a second. So you don't really need to go any slower than that to get that nice movement. And so that was a revelation. And it was cheating. It's kind of like cheating. You're just like, what, is it this easy? Because as anyone that does seascapes knows, you have to get your camera in some pretty awkward positions, and getting the tripod set right is always a pain. So with this, you can pretty much crouch down, getting close, use this slow shutter speed, and still get sharp, everything else sharp. It's unbelievable. So that's what that's for. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the best photo I've ever taken, but it was a demonstration of, what I can use it for.
Have you made a print of this one?
Yeah, small, not a big one, but it's razor sharp. It's not a problem, And I do like the way the Leica renders some of these details, and this one, and there's another one I've got of honeycombs, another local spot, and the rocks are all kind of creamy. There's just kind of like this soft creaminess about it, which I really like. It's it's hard to describe what it is.
You know when you see it.
Yeah.
And this was taken on the 16-35, is that right?
I think so. Pretty sure it was, because that was pretty. That rock in front of me was pretty.
Because you went for the 3 zooms, didn't you, when you bought the kit?
Yeah, bought the 16-35, the 24-90, and the 90-280. And that covers all the bases, covers everything that I need. Look, I think if I had to give up if I could only have one of those lenses, as far as like absolute love the lens, it's probably I would keep the 90-280, because that lens is just so sweet. Unfortunately, I did drop it recently, and so that was no fun. Along with a lot of other lenses, I took my camera bag out of the back of the car, went to put it on my back, and realized when it was too late that I hadn't zipped it up, and all the stuff went on the ground. The only thing that didn't land on the ground was, I think, my 16-35 and the body, luckily, and the other lenses hit the dirt. So it destroyed my 90-280, and Leica have got the new one on the way over, fixed up, ready to go. So I'm pretty happy about that, because I was pretty devastated. That's my favorite lens, and I pretty much knew it was broken when I rattled it. I shook it and it rattled. Kind of go, oh, okay. Don't think it's supposed to make that noise.
No. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a horrible feeling. Hey, David Grover just joined us from Capture One in
Hi, David.
London. Yeah. He just says hello. So,
yeah. How you going?
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the next landscape image. This is that Cape Naturaliste?
That's Cape Lewin.
Cape Lewin.
Yep. Cape Naturaliste is a little bit harder to get a good shot of the lighthouse, but down the Cape Lewin, it's really quite neat. And I went down there after shooting this previously on film, actually. And when I got there, I thought I had the right angle, but I went back to the old shot and realized it didn't have the right angle. It was a little bit different. But then I'm going, how did I actually get that shot before? Because I didn't even think I could actually stand there. But it was probably taken, I don't know, 15 years ago, and I was a bit younger then. I was probably a bit more agile, a bit more willing to take a risk. But this is kind of on the edge of a bit of a drop-off. And I thought I was as far back as I could get. But with this shot, and what I like about the Leica is I'll focus stack pretty much every image I do. But invariably, by doing that, one of the shots will be, I'll hit the hyperfocal distance perfectly, and everything will be sharp from front to back. I generally don't stop down too much. F8, maybe F11 at a stretch if I'm keen. More likely to be at F5.6 and focus stack. I find that more often than not, I'm getting the focus pretty right all the way through, and which is fantastic. So the other thing I love about the camera, obviously, is it's light and easy to use, and it's not it's easy to put in any position. Again, I didn't even really need a tripod for this shot, but because I was focus stacking, I thought, well, let's do it all properly. I mean, I don't think you should. I don't think you should just throw your tripod out just because that got a stabilized sensor. And you still need to be, careful with what you do. So. Yeah, and this would have been a blended image, a couple put together, so image for the sky, image for the foreground, and then just what I normally do, just brushing light through and making sure that it's reasonably believable, whether it's 100%.
I'm going to drop you in it here a little bit, because I'll tell to everybody that Christian will at some point be doing some videos for us about this kind of photography and showing some techniques. We're just working on the details at the moment, but at some point we're going to at least do some tutorials around how this sort of image can be created. I'd definitely like to do something more about the focus stacking, because whilst it's not difficult, there's some subtleties to it, and it would be great to hear from someone who does it a lot about the best way to shoot for that technique. So something we can offer in the future at some unspecified date, but we have it in mind to do. So yeah, that would be good.
Yep.
All right, let's step through to this next one, which is again quite different, very dramatic.
Yeah. This was up in a little town called CUE. And I just got lucky. I was there with a mate, Stuart Westmore, who shoots Leica. He's got a Leica kit and Phase One. He's got a nice Phase One kit. He's got all the go gear. This is like in the Midwest of Western Australia, and it's usually quite dry and sunny. But we got there and they had this massive rain event, which basically it rained all day and all night. And in the morning, we were going to go out to photograph this old abandoned hotel, but it's down these gravel roads. And of course, we couldn't get there because everything just became mud. You couldn't drive down. All the roads eventually got all closed. So we went back into town, and it was all overcast. And all of a sudden, the clouds cleared and the sun came out, and we just managed to get to this spot, which is just on the edge of town, well, basically in town, I guess. And I just loved the composition. I love the reflection in the thing. I think whenever there's rain around, and you're in a city or somewhere like that, you're always going out looking for those reflections, and they can be so interesting. But I just like the drama in this and the color. It was these two opposites on the color wheel.
Yes, the blue and the yellow, absolutely.
They just work every time. And like I've done some post-production to darken down areas, darken the top of the sky, darken the foreground, and then just punching that light where it belongs, which is in the middle. You want to focus your eye to the important stuff. You want that to be where you want to go. So yeah, it was just a handheld capture, just a quick reaction to something that's happening.
Interesting you mentioned the wet tarmac, because if you've ever noticed, when they're shooting car commercials, they always wet down the tarmac before they do the shot to get that reflection in it. It's a standard technique for well, a lot of photography, but car photography in particular. You get the hose pipes out and wet it all down, and you get that sort of reflections. So there's a photographic technique for you. Take a lot of water with you.
I'll put an old Commodore in there next time.
This next one is very much your style.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was renowned for back in the early days, I guess. It's your classic landscape image. I mean, I love it. I think it's a pretty image, long exposure, because we were there early. This is before the sun actually came up. Oh, actually, no. Oh, I tell like. Do you want me to be absolutely honest with you about this, Nick, or do you want me to lie and just?
Well, we're amongst friends here. We're all 183 of us.
Yeah, actually, wasn't that? I remember now. The sunrise wasn't that good. So that may possibly. I'm not going to say with all sincerity, but that may possibly be another sky from somewhere else. But
okay, yes.
But look, I have to maximize my time out in the field. If I think that I've wasted my time and I get back to the gallery and the girls are going, well, you're at Hamlin Bay, where are those shots? I want to see these shots. Come on, we need a Hamlin Bay shot. And I need to make sure that I've got the shot for them. So yeah, the sky was grey. It just after I took this shot, it started to rain. So I managed to find a beautiful sky that fit quite nicely. And I mean,
no way you would know. I didn't know. I mean, I'm pretty good at spotting your skies, but this one, no.
Yeah. And in fact, I'd forgotten I'd done it myself. So yeah, but shot with the Leica again. I think I was on the 24-90 when I shot this one.
Mm-hmm.
So not as wide ago. And partly because of that, it was because the waves are coming up quite a long way. You can see that water's coming right up to my feet. And I was with my mate Mark, and he had his old banger Nikon sitting out there on a tripod down low, and a wave came up, and he didn't want to get his shoes wet, so he just left the whole thing there instead of grabbing the camera. So this wave came up, and it washed around the tripod legs. He had it down low. He had it fully retracted down to just the one leg height of the water, and it was coming up, and I was looking at this thing going, that is going to go in the drink any minute now, because the sand gets loose and the water.
Yeah.
Anyway, it survived, and I couldn't believe it. It was just like, you're kidding me. Well, actually, halfway through that, I said, you've got to get your camera, Mark, or it's going in the drink. And so he ran into the water then, and it was literally up to just below his knees. That's how deep this thing was. It was. And of course, then he got his shoes all wet and his pants wet anyway. So you would never do that with a Leica. They're just too precious.
Well, you know what? It would survive. It would survive a big wave splashing over it. It is that waterproof.
Yeah.
Seriously is. You can pour one of the things that Conor McGill does, who's our national sales manager. He'll take a bottle of water, drinking water, and he'll just glug, 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 pour it all over it. You can, apparently, I've never tried this, dunk it in a bucket of water and take it out again. It's not waterproof, but it's extremely water resistant. So if you did get that one wave splashing over it, I would be very surprised if it came to any harm. It'd be scary, but it would be. It's extremely well sealed, this camera.
Yeah, I've seen that kind of do that. I think that was the one I think that's the one they sold me.
It's not his own camera. This was one that looks very much like a painting, which I think's a great compliment. So thanks, Chris, for that. All right, another very painterly one coming up. It's this one. Yeah, now that's a real rainbow. Yay.
Yep. Yes, it was a real rainbow. Possibly not there at the time.
Stop it.
I'm going to get booed off this webinar. The people are going to go, oh, come on, Fletcher. Gee, again, the girl said, get me a nice photograph of the Kennedy Ranges. And I like doing that stuff. It's my thing. I'm not going to apologize for it, because both images were shot on the Leica. They were shot within a day of each other. And they were just brought together in a moment of time of my choosing. So, Yeah, but then,
But
that's
that's the Kennedy. That's from quite recently, yeah?
Yeah, this was
Yeah.
only 3 or 4 weeks ago, I guess,
Okay.
when I was up there. And I've never been to the Kennedy Ranges in Western Australia. If you get a chance, I mean, I think you've been there, Nick, so you know what I'm talking about. But it's quite spectacular, quite remarkable.
Agreed.
If I had known it was that pretty, I would have been there years ago. But I was really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it's sort of not on the way to anywhere. You don't sort of go past it by accident. You've got to make an effort to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, highly recommended. It's pretty remote.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, very remote. But yeah, spectacular place. So we got there late afternoon, and the light was just hitting that one rocky headland there, but there's so many of those sort of headlands all the way along that range.
It's one huge series of buttresses that just runs for kilometers, isn't it? It's quite an unusual place. I think it's inland from Carnarvon, if I'm right. A couple 100 kilometers inland.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So from Perth, it's not that far. You can get there probably in, well, not in a day and a half, I guess.
Yeah.
Or you could do it in a day if you left really early in the morning.
True. Yeah. Definitely worthwhile. We might go back next year, actually. All right. Next one. Now we're starting to shift. So these are the classic landscape pictures that Christian's known for. But then we're going to shift gears a little bit and start to talk about some of the more unusual pictures, and maybe get some creative inspiration from these as well. This is quite different from what that you normally do, anyway.
Yeah, this is one that my wife told me to take. So, there's not many other reasons other than my wife said we need some wildflower shots in the gallery, so I went out to shoot them, and I put this in the slideshow. One, because I really like it, and when it prints really beautifully. It's like that flower is just so sharp, and the background is just so beautifully out of focus. I thought, well, yeah, and I'll put that in. But part of the reason was because I didn't have any others that I thought about putting in that were shot with the 90 to 280. So this was it. And that lens is just so sharp. It's just, I was so glad that I bought it, because I didn't originally order it. And then I spoke to one of the boys, and they said, look, have you thought about this lens? And I was going, yeah, well, maybe I'll just get a Sigma to kind of, maybe just to make up that, extra. And they said, well, just, have a look at it. I think you, Nick, had used it down in Antarctica. Was that right?
I've used it a lot. Yeah.
And so when I think I got a loaner to have a play with before I pulled the pin, and I took the first shot and went, yeah, okay, that's
it is good.
Yeah.
It is good. Yeah.
And so that is my favorite lens. Not many, I mean, people think about landscapes, they think about, we're going to go wide, let's get a wide angle, but there's so many great things you can do with the telephoto, short to long telephotos. And there's so many times when you just want to be, you're only on the other side of the valley there looking at that, and if you get nice clear air, you can get some really good stuff, really sharp images. And I love that shallow depth of field. I mean, that would be a great lens to shoot portraits with as well, if you want to get right back. Remember that effect that where you that we talked about. I always forget the name of it, and someone will probably type it in the comments, where you take a whole lot of shots with the aperture wide open, with a longer focal length of a portrait of a person, and you put them all together, you stitch them all together, you take how many shots you need to fill that frame, put them all together, and you get that really weird shallow depth of field.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know what it's called, but you showed me that technique a few years ago. And what Christian's talking about is not a focus stack front to back, but it's actually using a longer lens than two longer lens for the subject, and you do a panel, like a 3x3x3, if you like, or whatever you need to do. So you end up with the angle of view of a wider angle lens, but the look of a telephoto lens. And it looks a lot like large format film used to look like 10x8 film. It's not easy to do, but boy, because you showed me a picture of your daughter you shot like that years ago, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
And I tried it when I took a group to Myanmar in 2019, and I tried that in a temple with a couple of teachers, Myanmar teachers there and in the traditional roads, and it had that Victorian sort of large format look about it, but it was tricky to do. That's a really interesting technique. Yeah, I don't even know if it's got a name. It's a stitch, I suppose, but it's just not. It's done for different reasons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine. Yeah, and that's nice. I always want to do that, and I always forget to do it, and probably because I don't do any portraits. But look, there's so many other situations out in the landscape where you could do something like that if you had the right subject that was really interesting, and you wanted to get that really weird shallow depth field look. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, it is. It's the other thing about the telephoto lenses for landscapes is you get that flattening of perspective as well, which is really quite interesting. That it's another creative tool that narrow. It's not about magnification per se. It's about flattening the perspective, and then you can get these, especially when you're looking into like ridge lines receding away from you. You get that sort of cardboard cutout look with that blue haze in the distance, and that works very. Or shooting into dust with a long lens is better. You get that lovely sort of golden dust behind subject. It's much better than the telephoto lens. So yeah, it's a really cool lens. All right, this next one is again a little bit of a departure. So tell us a bit about this one. This looks like a canola field down southwest near you somewhere.
It's actually in the Midwest, so it's up north of me.
Midwest.
But yeah, this is part of one of the shots in my exhibition, which is currently on in my gallery, and the tractor was shot at a junkyard down near Denmark, between Denmark and Albany, and this place was just unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it, and I actually ridden my bike past it when I was doing a big bike ride down between Perth and Albany, and I saw this place and I saw these buses and harvesters and all this stuff, and I thought, I've got to find out a bit more about that. So if you go into Google Earth and you look between Albany and Denmark, if you look hard, you'll see this junkyard and how much is there. And I went in this morning. It was a light misting rain, so it was all overcast and quite miserable. And I started photograph. I said, "Look, do you mind if I go in and shoot this?" I thought they were going to tell me to get nicked. They said, "Oh no, that's fine. We have all the camera clubs coming here all the time taking photos." So I was like, "Wow, that's cool." So I went in there and I photographed all these tractors. So the idea was this exhibition was actually going to be about making portraits of all this old machinery, from the harvesters to the tractors and old trucks, and there's buses and all sorts of stuff. I mean, anything you can imagine is there, anything mechanical, anything and it's all old and classic. And so I took that, shot both scenes with the Leica and then composited them together. So the tractor was actually obviously cut out from the background because there was so much there. There was too much junk. You can't isolate the shot and make it into anything unless you actually remove it from that scene.
I was thinking about that because I realized it was a composite, and it didn't occur to, the difficult thing I thought would be, I mean, that's tricky, but it's actually to get it in amongst I'm looking at the screen just below the camera here, getting it to fit into the vegetation, because that would be quite a hard job to get it inside the canola plants rather than it just being, like a sharp edge to it. I don't know how you do that.
I had a brush. I think I've got not a canola brush, but a vegetation sort of brush, and just batching the color, just grabbing the color from the canola, and then just I was able to kind of just stamp it in and try and make it look a little bit more like it was sit there. I do think I got the scale wrong a little bit. I think the tractor's maybe a little bit big.
I would agree. I was not going to say anything, but I do agree with you. If you've thought that, then I think it's fair to say that I thought the same thing. And
it wasn't until after I'd done everything, flattened it, and I went, "Oh, hang on, that might be a bit big." But this is not the reality. This is the far away land where giant rule the canola fields. And the sky was there, but it's just been darkened, and I've actually put a texture over it as well.
I can see that.
Just a slight texture, just to kind of farming it up a little bit.
So to continue with the theme of old machinery, this is a pretty cool old truck.
Yeah, and this is the cool thing about the Leica, is that this is all handheld stuff because I was just in there, not really prepared. But it actually is fit. It's put in with a phase one shot. So the background is shot in phase one, and the foreground is shot on Leica, and they went together really well. So when I took these shots, I knew I was going to cut them out. So I started to look through my library for images of backgrounds that I thought could work. And I wanted to, because it had the green on the bonnet, I thought it's important to keep that kind of greens and yellows going. So the grass where I photographed it, all the grass in the foreground where the truck's sitting on is actually the real grass. And then from behind the truck, the rolling hills back there was the other grass.
I see. Yeah.
There was a difference in the color between the two grasses of a different color. So in post, I went into hue saturation, used a colorize, check the colorize box, and then created a green, blended down on hue, and just messed around with the greens with the hue slider in there until I got a kind of green that was close, and then messed around with the opacity of that layer to make it fit as closely as I could. I tried to match the colors.
No, it certainly looks good to me. I mean, I've got it on two screens here. This is the iMac screen. It looks a lot better here. I've got an old TV I'm looking at. It looks a bit, it's the colors are all over the place, but when I look here, it's really much more subtle. But just if I could just interrupt one moment, there's a funny little rumble that comes through your mic once in a while. I don't know whether you're moving something around.
No.
It's sort of like this. I don't know where it's coming from. It's not at my end.
I'm not doing anything.
No, that's it.
That's just me tapping the mic. But maybe am I talking a bit loud? Maybe.
No, the volume is good. Maybe anyway, not to worry. It's fine. We can hear you very clearly. It's just this little noise comes through occasionally. I just wanted to see whether it was a problem that that we could fix. But anyway, not to worry. All righty, and then move on to the next one. There we go.
Yeah, again, another one from that same series. And this time I had to get the green grass and make it brown because the background I was wanting to put it on was, basically, pretty well just dead brown stubble, really. So, that grass that the tractor was sitting on was all actually green. And then just again the hue thing, using colorize and match the color as close as I could. But it was the detail in this shot. I mean, all these ones are printed. They're 115 centimeters square, so they're big squares, and they just look beautiful. They're
that's pretty big.
Yeah, they look big, and when they're in the frames and all that, they're a decent piece, and the quality is awesome. Obviously, foreground and background both shot on Leica this time, and really happy with the detail, the dynamic range. I mean, it was all shot on an overcast day, so that helps. It wasn't a real issue. I just had to kind of drop in a bit of slight shadow underneath because I wanted to get that illustrative look anyway. I didn't want it to be. It actually helped a lot because if this was lit by proper bright sunlight, then it would have made the blend a little bit harder. So, but I love the personality of these old things because this thing has got no back wheels. The tires are gone, and it just makes it a little bit more. It has like a more of a human feel because we all know that we all feel like this every now and then. With the wheels have come off and we're out of control. So. But it's about making these images simple, and the hero is the tractor. So it's like, okay, what do I want to look at? Now, if I was to show you everything around that tractor at the time, it's not a shot. It's just not. So
you could say it's hyper real in some respects.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the next three images are another departure. And this is something that I've seen you photograph, and I've tried it myself. It didn't work very well. And so let's just go through some of these sort of, well, let's say if you think of Jeffrey Smart, you won't be going too far wrong with the style. There's these next three are very interesting to me. I do like these.
Yeah. Well, I've had an interest in this sort of stuff for a long time, probably 10 or 11 years now. And every time we go out or I go out, I'm looking for this sort of style image. And this was shot in Narrogin. And it's the side of a Coles shopping centre. And it's we all know that Coles is red, so, and that they've got this new colour scheme, it's red and grey sort of thing. But the red wasn't quite as nice as maybe it was orange. So I want that whole teal and orange look, which is what everyone, all the movie sort of buffs are like. They kind of like their teal and orange. So I went for that. So I changed it to orange. And the palm trees weren't there. They were actually just a little bit further around town. They were actually shot on the same day in the same town. But I knew that I liked them because they were tall and they were all together and they were quite easy to capture. But I just needed something else. And without those palm trees there, that if you took them out, if you really thought about it, they were gone. There's too much sky and not enough in it. And the idea is there's not even a zigzag, but it's basically you look at the palm trees and you go straight down the trunks and it goes straight to the white door and then off to the left and you're done, So I messed around with putting the palm trees on the other side, but then it looked a little bit
I see what you mean.
contrived. It didn't look quite. The balance didn't look as good. There was something weird about it. It just didn't work. So I like to try these things and just see how they can be made better and just by shifting things around.
Yeah, sometimes breaking the obvious rules can be really powerful, because I see what you're saying. If you sort of did the sort of classical balance of having the trees to the left a little bit more to balance the door to the right, then it looks contrived. But by doing this, you sort of broken the balance, and it's got a sort of tension to it, which is quite interesting. So it's I like your thinking on that one. This next one is not dissimilar, but it's a lot more balanced, I would say. Very cubic.
I'd photographed this building a couple of times, and the first time I'd photographed it, I didn't see it like this. Now, part of the thing when you're out shooting this sort of style is that you've got to forget about what you're looking at sometimes, because the brick wall, the pink brick wall, was actually just red bricks. There was nothing, So when you look at the red brick against the purple and the blue, it just looked pretty ordinary. I think there was some signage somewhere that I may have taken it out. I think it's just possibly on that purple wall, just under the blue. I think there might have been some signage there. In there. And I think I've taken that out. So I wanted to simplify it all down and just make it, like you said, cubist. It's just got this real geometric shape, this repetition. It's got this depth. And the colors, I made the pink so that it would fit in. And I had in the back of my mind, it's always this pastel Miami style Palm Springs look. So I had a palm tree that I shot up near Perth and found that, cut that out, put it in. And the sky was from somewhere else. It was I think it was a kind of a bit of a humid, slightly stormy day. And you've got to be careful when you drop your skies in that you try and work out where the horizon is and make sure that you line the horizon of the sky up with the horizon that would be there in the other shot. Otherwise, sometimes it can look like your clouds are too high or they're too low, and they just don't work. So I think this works quite well. And the palm tree was that it had to go right there. It was like the perfect spot for it.
The interesting thing about this is, I think it's something that we've talked about, and certainly I've had conversations with other photographers, is the difficulty of seeing shapes as opposed to what things actually are. You see a house and you can unpack the word house and it tells you all sorts of things, but what does it actually look like? What is the actual shape? And it's really hard to look past what something is. And it's sort of a left brain, right brain thing. And this is why I think this image and the next one works so well. Why I like it so much is we are down to shapes, and what it actually isn't important. It's a pleasing arrangement of shapes. And if I go to the next one, you'll see what I mean, except there is a dude in there, which is an interesting departure. So tell us about this one.
So this guy, well, this is was shot in a suburb called Kwinana, which is south of Perth. And I go on my little trips to Perth. I have to deliver pictures or pick up stuff or whatever. So I always take my camera. So chuck the SL2 next to me usually either sitting on my lap or it's just on the seat next to me. And I'm looking around for all these urban shots. So I went to this new shopping center and I thought, well, I really like that building. It's really quite cool. But there was obviously the Coles sign was on it, on that left-hand wall. There was a big Coles sign. And then on the right-hand wall, just above the guy, was the Liquorland sign. So this unbranded sort of series that I started was with Unique when we were on our way to Malawa, and we stopped at either Three Springs or Carnamar. I can't remember. I keep forgetting. And there was the IGA there, and I photographed that and took all the signage out, and all of a sudden it became really interesting because
it's really good.
Really just nice blocky colors, and it was a nice pastel blue sky, and it just, once the branding's gone from everything, it just it's like you look at it and go, well, I know what that is, but it's not, I know that's a Coles because I know the colors they use, but it's kind of weird because where's the sign? Anyway, the other thing that happened was that when I took this shot, I was in my car, I was driving, and I basically came up to an intersection that was taken from an intersection. So I wound the window down. I was about to take the shot, and the cars came up behind me, and I had to get going. So I had to put the camera down, and I drove around. So I drove around the block, came back, and I waited for a little bit for people to have a clear road. I went out onto that road again, and I stopped there, had the window down, the camera was on, ready to go, and because I had didn't have all that much time to take it, so I quickly went down, took the shot. And as I was doing that, this guy walked through, and I thought, damn. Anyway, no, he's a shot. When I took the photo, it was like that moment where it's like, okay, that's cool, he's in there. But then when you look at the crosswalk sign and his feet, they actually matched. He's got the same stance as the sign. And then when you look at his head, it's quite round, boldy looking, like the speed hump. And so we call this one mullets and masks, because he's got this mullet. He's a security guy. And he's got this the most evil mullet I've ever seen, and he's got his black mask on. So now this is a historical piece. It's talks about this point in time, this point in our lives that we're all affected by. This is a shot that kind of defines it for me now. So it'd be interesting to see what this shot means in 20, 30, 50 years time. Probably
interesting, because there was a conversation I'm following, I think, online somewhere, about this idea that, do photographs require captions or some sort of narrative? Should they stand on their own? And I've always thought that photographs are often better when they have a little bit of information supplied, and I think this is a good example, because there's some little details which people might not note, and I certainly didn't. And then when it's pointed out, you go, oh, okay, and the point. So I think this is a good example of when captions or some sort of narrative do help. But that is very clever. I do like that.
And I like that, the style, and I've edited it specifically to be light and colorful and happy, and which is a total opposite to what it should be, because we're living in these concrete jungles. I mean, we spend more time in these man-made places than we do in the wilderness around. So I wanted to kind of show it as this happy place, even though it's not really. No one likes going to Coles. Sorry,
you're a deep thinker, mate. You're a deep thinker.
No, I'm not deep.
Speaking of deep thinking, the next few pictures are very much of a change from what we've been looking at so far. So I'm just going to throw it up there and listen to what you say.
This is my passion project. I love Star Wars. I'm not sure, Nick, are you a bit of a Star Wars fan, Nick, or are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. No, I'm there.
It changed my life. I was 12 years old when episode 4 came out, and I went to the movies and saw it. And it was like, this is the most amazing friggin' thing I've ever seen and experienced. It was like life-changing. I'd never been so impressed with anything before in my life. It was just incredible. And that's, what it's like with photography in some respects. Like when you see these beautiful, amazing images, and there's amazing quality. And I remember seeing Michael Fatali's work and thinking, wow, that is just the most amazing quality I've ever seen in a photograph. Well, Star Wars was the most amazing movie I'd ever seen in my life. So I got this I got to love it. I mean, I wasn't so fond of 1, 2, and 3, but 4, 5, 6 were great, and obviously 7, 8, 9 were pretty cool. So so I met these guys through a friend, and found out there was a whole tribe of people that love getting dressed up in costumes, and these Star Wars characters, they're part of this rebel legion, which is like throughout the world. There's different garrisons all over the world, and these guys belong to the 501st Legion in Perth, and all their costumes have to be movie perfect. So I think some of them actually even been extras in some of the movies, and so they just great fun to photograph. So I took them up to this dam. This is a place called Canning Dam in Perth, and this was all shot with a studio light. I've had one studio flash. So by having that, it allowed me to darken down everything and just put the light where I wanted to. Had the remote trigger on the SL2 and just went around hand holding these shots of these guys. And in post, I further darkened down the outside, and that blue glow that comes down from the top there, that was put in post using a program called something. It's a plugin for Photoshop, Infinite something or other. I can't remember now. I should know that. And it's there's all these little effects that you can get and just drag and drop into the shots, and it's like adding that little bit of light. So that's how that came in. I just love the colors. I love the subject, the balance.
Well, what amuses me is that after all the landscapes you've seen, this is completely a straightforward picture. There's no compositing, nothing like that at all. I wondered when I first saw these whether these were in fact figurines, because I have seen some photography done of the big figurines, and particularly Star Wars characters, and hyper realistic, but they were actually small figures. But these are actually people dressed up. So very cool. So there's another one that's not dissimilar, which I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. So this is in the spillway, and I'm not a people photographer. I don't do portraits. So for me to do this was, I thought, I got a Leica now. I can do anything. I need to be doing people, because Leica is renowned for people photographers and street photographers and all that sort of stuff. So I thought, okay, well, I better give it a crack. And I was really worried when I did it, because I didn't think I could pull it off. I didn't know really what I was doing. I have my studio light, but I hardly ever use it. So I'm fiddling around with buttons on the back, and okay. But you work it out, and it's pretty easy eventually. But I love shooting it on location because they all fit nicely. Now I've got a whole lot of others that are composited, but these are all real. They were actually there, and I really like this little setup, because it's quite a nice little pose of the guys. Again, all that light that's coming in from the side, and the mist was all brought in post. I've done that in post production to create that kind of feel. But the lighting comes from that way. I had my studio light coming from that way, and when you see the original shot of that, it's it doesn't look much like that at all. It's more grey, less warmth, but just go to show you. And the thing I love about this is I feel like I'm in my own little Star Wars movie, and I'm making, even though we're not doing it, it's just a still photo. It's like I want to create this my own little Star Wars universe. So I've got a whole lot of plans to do more of this going forward.
Okay, so these are not the droids you're looking for.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So these ones composited, obviously, because they obviously shouldn't be that big, but. This was all shot on the same day, except for the moon, which I grabbed off the internet somewhere. It's just like, I need a moon. Found it, right, drop down, moon, perfect, thank you. It was just some free clip art. But so I went up for this shoot in the morning. The shoot was in the afternoon, but I went up early in the morning to Perth, and I wanted to get some of this industrial stuff. So this is a place called Alcoa, which is in Kwinana, and it's pretty much on the coast. So all the factories are all built right on the ocean front. They're basically built on the sand dunes. So you can walk along the beach and just shoot straight into these things. And so it was a nice day. It was actually like a soft overcast. And that smoke that's down at the bottom there was actually smoke from one of the chimneys most of it was, there was a bit of smoke thrown in post as well, because it didn't fill it all up. I wanted to fill it a bit more. So it's almost like they're in, what's that cloud city called? Horizontal? No, not Horizontal. What's the cloud city? Anyway, it's a cloud city in episode something or other, 4 or 5 or 6. Anyway, it's a bit like
I'm
that.
not that nerdy, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I just put them in, tried to get the shadows to be kind of realistic, and and I like it. It's,
Sam says Cloud City.
Yeah.
Mike reckons you should have a Wookiee or two in there as well.
Yeah. Well, I know this guy Brad he's a Wookiee. He's got Chewbacca. He's also got a full R2D2 absolutely robotic working, like the real thing, and he's got a C3PO suit. They're all movie perfect, so it's the real deal. This stuff is. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right. A couple more of these, and then we'll get on to some dark landscapes in a sec.
Yeah.
Probably best press on, actually, because we're 22 minutes past.
Yep. No worries. This was just shot in Las Vegas, and I thought I liked the dishes, so I thought I had to have a stormtrooper in front of that. The sign was there, so that's all real. So yeah, but move on.
So that's just the figures composited in, but the background is
real. Everything's real except for the character.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. It's a really good composite. That shadow is really well done.
Yes, but you know what?
They're hard to do.
I think it's probably the shadow should be a bit further away, across to the left, because if you look at the pole, the shadow on the pole is a bit further along, and he's actually further out towards the road than the pole is. And
oh no, you're getting too detailed. I think it looks fine.
Yeah.
Get your protractor and your ruler out, but those things are important. They've got to look plausible, because sometimes there's something you go, like the tractor wasn't the right size. It was like, not sure what that is, but it's not quite right. This one, no, I think it was really good. So, and then this last one here was reflections are very hard to do.
Yeah. So this was dropped in as well. They're all composited in, and I just like that scene anyway, and which is all real. And the guys stormtroopers weren't real, but it's kind of like I want to put these guys in kind of in more in scenes that everyday scenes that we live in, and just see what comes out of it.
So for when the Earth gets taken over by the Imperial stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it. Yep.
All right. So the last three are again another change of style. So Christian is a man of many parts, clearly. So this is very different once more.
Yeah. Yep. So this was one of the images at the very start of the Cape Leeuwin Lighthouse. This is the same shoot, same day, but shooting straight into the sun and just getting that fence line. And I really liked it. There was some reason, and as soon as I converted it to black and white, it was like, oh, that's a Leica shot. This is what Leica people do, we shoot black and white and we love it, and we do it well. So that's all real. I mean, there's apart from darkening a bit of the sky down, everything else was fine, and I don't mind that, just pushing those blacks down to almost a silhouette. There is detail there when you see it in the real print. This is also part of my exhibition, and it's just kind of nice. I just like that the fence line leading in, and just looking back towards the light like that.
It's very bleak, very, very bleak, and a bit sort of post-apocalyptic, I suppose, in a sense, with barbed wire and stormy skies and so on. And that actually is not dissimilar to this one, which also looks quite apocalyptic.
I this is in the exhibition as well, and it's shot with the 90 to 280. Looking back, this is out towards Nannup and Balingup, and my little favourite spot to go. And it was a real stormy day, and I just loved it. There was a big, massive fire that went through this area, and all the trees were burnt, and they basically had to log them all. It's all forested trees, so it's not like it's old growth and it's terrible, but it is a kind of a bit of a symbolic and it is quite a sad image, and I wanted that to get that sense and to darken it down more and to make it more gritty and dramatic, because it does look like the end of the world. These are the last trees standing, which maybe represent us as the last humans to be living on this planet. That sounds what a wonderful topic. So you get a light and you get depressed. You get dark and moody. No, you don't. You get happy because you can do good things. But yeah, so there's a whole lot of things that you could look at this, and different people could look at and go, yeah, I see this, or I see that, or this means this, or this means that. I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to impress anyone or put my opinions on anyone. But it was just, I like it as an image. I think it's a strong image. I think it's dramatic and it's interesting to me.
No, I agree. I think I'd like to see the print of it. In fact, just before we go to the last image, I should mention that Christian's got an exhibition at his gallery in Dunsborough, and whilst it's going to be a little tricky to visit for those of us on the East Coast at the moment, shall we say, in the future, but look at the website of Christian's website, because I think there's quite a few pictures of the gallery itself. Am I right?
There's pictures of the exhibition, and I've also recorded a video where I've done a walkthrough and I've talked about some of the images.
That would be really good.
Yeah, and
because it's a beautiful gallery. It's really, I'd say it was one of the best. Well, it's by far the best photographic gallery in the country, I would say, because it's just the architecture is so interesting. It's a really great spot, and it's well worth a visit if you happen to be passing.
Yeah. Otherwise, look at my YouTube channel.
Yeah, and check out the YouTube channel. Yeah. Okay, do that. And then just, this is a very recent one, I know, and you were telling me about the story behind this a little bit, so maybe you could.
Yeah, and I said to Nick when I gave it to him, I was, look, it's not a ball-tearingly wonderful photo, but this is, I had to show a photo that kind of summed up why I'm happy with Leica, is because, you know, it allows me now to photograph anything I want in any situation, any light, in any climatic condition, pretty much. And look, you know, you can say that about a Nikon or a Canon or a Sony or whatever, but it is pretty much, this shot sums up, hey, I can go out at nighttime, throw a few lights out there, do long exposures, and I'm a happy little Vegemite. So this place is the old abandoned hotel up near Kew, where I'm going to take my Star Wars characters soon, and we're going to I'm going to photograph them in all these places. This place is full of rooms. It's a 2-story building. The roof's all gone. So I'm not sure if anyone's seen 1917, but there's that night window scene where the guy's running through the ruins of the town, and all the flares are going off, and it's lighting it in all these really dramatic ways. So I've got all these plans to kind of create this really interesting lighting. We've got Ben from Team Digital is going to he's got this big light on a massive stand, a big pole thing that you can hang down over spaces, and want to just try and create these really interesting lit spaces to put the stormtroopers. And I've got a Darth Vader, Boba Fett, apparently, obviously nice. R2 and all that, and put them in these really gritty, grimy, grungy places, lit really well. Get some smoke machines blowing, and So this is where I'm going to do it, and the Leica allows me to do all that fun stuff. Not saying that you can't do it with any other camera, but the camera I had before this, I couldn't do it with. So yeah.
And so my next question was what's coming up for you, but you kind of answered that because it's more Star Wars.
More Star Wars. I know I've got another idea.
Have you got any travel plans to do more traditional stuff coming up, or are you focusing a lot more on this sort of more art orientated imagery?
Yeah, I haven't got any real plans yet. I've got 2 kids at high school. I've got another couple of years before I can get them through high school. But yeah, I'll be going up to Kew to do the Star Wars shoot, and that's about 10 or 11 hours drive from here. So that's a bit of a road trip. I've also, my friend Carmen and I, we have our podcast, and we're going to be recording our first episode of it's called Landscape Rescue, where we take a struggling landscape photographer out and help them along with their creativity, and basically ask them to buy us beers at the pub and fetch things for us. No, that's not true. No, we want to have a bit of fun. We want to create just a fun video where we can take someone out
Good idea.
So we're asking people to, if they live in WA, has to be WA, unfortunately, and they're a little bit desperate and they're having problems with their creativity, let us know. And you never know, you might get picked out of the hat and whisked away for a weekender somewhere to take photos. So that's coming up. I do have a really good idea. I think it's a good idea, but it's too good to actually talk about until I start doing it.
Secret squirrel stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's gonna be super high res photos with the Leica. So 187 megapixels of interesting things.
And then you can run it through that camera raw image enhancing algorithm and double it again.
Sorry, I'm not a fan of that. Gigapixel AI. They don't pay me either.
It is good. It is good. I got to agree. So I should really throw the floor open to any questions at this point before we call it an evening, because everyone's been, there's a few comments, you've probably seen them come up, but I haven't had any questions yet. So if anybody's got any questions for Christian, now would be a good time. Just in the chat would be absolutely fine. If anybody wants to ask him anything about, well, photography, I suppose. Anybody at all? Yeah, there's a few Star Wars comments there. Ludwig's happy. Yes, I think it's interesting to see that you're still coming up with different ideas. It's very, very easy when you master a particular subject to just keep doing it, and it becomes a bit of a sausage factory. But I know that you're constantly looking for things to keep you interested. Really, I think that's very commendable, and you're certainly out there shooting a lot more than I am at the moment, which is
well, I mean, you're working hard on your video presentations and your YouTube channel and that, which is really good. And I got to concentrate on gallery stuff, which is a bit of a handbrake as well, because I do have the stuff that I have to produce and sell. But there was something I read today, and I wish I can remember what it was. It was an AI thing, or they plugged in some information about creativity and what people do and how they do it, and spat out an answer. And I wish I could remember now. It was something about there was two words, and they both started with the same letter, but they meant different things. And one was basically meaning, if you don't, you've got to go out and experiment and try this different stuff, and some of it will fail, some won't. But when it works, then you've got to hit it like crazy. You basically talk about getting I guess it's like a sweet spot, but you find that thing that works, and then you go flat out and do that while
really
it's big and happening. There's you got that sweet spot. So it's a shame I can't remember it exactly, but
we'll come to you in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
there's a couple of questions popped up. So Mike Whitby would like to know if you're using Capture One now, but you were using Capture One, I think, but you're not now. Is that right?
Yeah. I keep kind of flip flopping, and I've run out of. I'd have to subscribe again and to get to get it again, because I was using it. I got it with my Phase One, and I was using it exclusively with that. And then recently, when I was kind of more forced to use Camera Raw, I thought, actually, Camera Raw is quite good now. It was a lot better than it used to be anyway. And I thought, well, I can just about do everything I want to do in Camera Raw. And admittedly, I don't do so much in Camera Raw. I'm always just getting it out, because I'm happy in Photoshop, and that's where I'm comfortable. Yeah. That's where my style comes from. That's where my look is. So I'm using the raw programs just for the bare basics. I do a bit of pre-sharpening. I address any noise issues. I set my white balance that I'm interested in. Generally bring up the shadows, add a bit of clarity, a bit of dehaze, mess around with the white and blacks point, and then just get it to a certain point. But it's never takes me exactly where I want to end up. It's just a starting point. And sometimes I'll use smart objects and go back and forwards in RAW. But, there's so many people that, and I'm one of them, sometimes you stress too much over these things that aren't that important. It's the end result that's the important thing. It doesn't matter how you get there, what you use. I was speaking to a guy the other day that was using GIMP, and good on him. Good luck, Affinity Photo is another one, which is pretty awesome. And So yeah.
And
But I would love
also,
to capture one again if they're listening.
well, David's just he left a few minutes ago. He
I
had to
know.
go, but you've got that. So Rod Neep had a question as well. Can you see the chat questions on your screen?
Yes, I can see some.
It's probably easy for you to read them, and
Yep.
rather than me read them out.
Camera around, make it yeah, so this is Rod Neep's one about moving from camera around 100 megapixels to one less than half. Yeah, at first I was really worried about that. In fact, I was actually I was on the IQ 280, so it was only 80 megapixels, so wasn't too much to lose. But I actually gained it in the high res mode, and seriously, that 187 megapixels, you squish that back down to something less. It's amazing the detail you get from that. Saying that, gigapixel AI works so well that I can scale that up to 100 megapixels anyway from the standard 47 megapixel file, and it does such a good job. You know, you look at a picture, you look at the images on the screen sometimes, and you go, that's a bit crunchy, or that's a bit dodgy, or that's a little bit whatever. But if you make it print, it doesn't translate so much. I mean, you see worse things happening on your screen than you actually see in the print. So, the thing that for me is my customers don't notice a difference. All they see now is different stuff coming from me, more varied work. They don't look at the quality, because I've got stuff shot on a Canon D60 that I still sell in the gallery, images that are horrendous quality, but the good scene, and people like them, and they keep buying them because they don't know squat. They don't care. They want to connect to a photograph, and they want that to mean something to them. They don't look at it and go, "Oh, geez, he's cooked that," or he's or there's a bit of grain in that corner. Or look at the noise in those shadows. It doesn't happen. So that's not a problem. Yeah. It hasn't been.
Have you noticed? You can always tell the other photographers in your gallery, because they're the ones with their noses stuck to the print.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Everybody else goes, "Hey, it's a great picture." That's the important thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hang on, Paul's asked a question as well there. If you could see that one, couple down.
The most challenging to capture. What photo to find the most challenging to capture would actually it's probably the landscape. A true, beautiful landscape photograph is probably the most difficult to capture. The urban banal stuff is actually quite easy, because you can do it any time of the day, and it's light is not such an issue, long as you don't have it too contrast. You shoot those shots and you pull the contrast out to make it look pastel and nice, and that's easy. But a beautiful landscape photograph, I find myself under more pressure and stress when I'm at. So let's say I'm at Yosemite National Park, and there's an epic sky and it's going off. That's when I find it difficult, because I'm going, the light is amazing, it's beautiful, I've got to get a shot, where's the shot? And then you just go, bling, your brain fries, and you just end up wasting your time. It's what did Ansel Adams say about landscape photography? It's
the greatest challenge and the greatest disappointment,
or something like that. Yeah,
something along those lines. He's full of good
so
quotes.
True. If you're doing people shots, you can use the studio light. You can.
I think he was getting at, it's very easy to do, but it's really, really hard to do well.
Yeah,
I think that because it's in front of you. Whereas the urban stuff you're doing is easy to do, but you've got to have thought of doing it in the first place. And you can look at some work and go, well, that's obvious, but then you realize nobody else has done it. Somebody has thought of it first. I mean, ideas. I think ideas are at least as important as any sort of technical prowess. In fact, I would say more important. A really interesting idea. It doesn't really matter, how technically perfect the picture might be. It's nice if it is, but if it's not, it's about the idea, whether it captures your imagination. So I think thinking outside the square and coming up with new ideas is a really good way to actually segue into finishing up this evening as well, because the inspiration that we've seen this evening, I think, should give people ideas. And for those people who are kind of stuck indoors at the moment, there may be some ideas there that you can pull out of those images to do with urban environments. So I know a few people who are come to most of these webinars, thinking of Kwok and Eric and a couple of others who may not be here are working quite hard within the constraints of their lockdown and coming up with interesting images. So I think some of the stuff that we've seen this evening might actually give you some ideas towards that. So Keith has got a quick question before we go. I don't want to miss that one. Keith's a regular. If you don't have a background sky, would you normally look for one online?
No, there's plenty of skies out there to just look outside, point at the camera. But I always look for a good sky. Doesn't matter where I am. If there's a good sky and I've got nothing in the foreground, shoot it anyway, because you never know when you're going to use it.
Yeah. And then on I love the comment from Rod here. Christian, the talent you have as a photographer is only outstaged by your own brutal honesty. Love it.
Yeah, you got to be honest. Yeah, I'm not perfect. I've been lucky, and I've made some of my own luck, but I've worked hard, and it's I can't see the point in pretending that you're something you're not. Nick knows me enough to know that I'm pretty I'm just a dude. In fact, that's how we call it. That's how we address each other, dude. Hey, dude. So, yeah.
Well, we have had some fun trips together over the years, I must admit, and we work in a different way and think in a different way, which is a lot of fun. So as you probably gathered. All right. Peter, is the kit? I'm going to have to wag my finger here. There is no such thing as a Leica kit lens. I am being serious. The 24-90 is the one that you think of as being the kit lens. There are no kit lenses for Leica. They're all full Leica lenses. So yes, the answer to that question is absolutely, it is good enough. It's probably one of the sharpest lenses in the entire SL range, to be honest. So without any doubts at all. I mean, you would agree with that. I mean, even at that 187 megapixel capture, that 24-90 is absolutely razor sharp. So not a kit lens.
No, and that's my go-to lens. That's the one that's on the camera most of the time.
Yeah,
especially for the urban stuff. And I wasn't going to buy that lens either. And Nick, you talked me into it. You said, I think
I've said to people when I've been having that conversation is that if you had to use only one lens for an entire job or forever, that lens can probably do just that one lens, probably 90% of what you need to do. It'd be nice to have a longer lens or a wider lens, but 24 is quite wide and 90 is good for portraits, and it is really, really high quality. It's really well built, and you can just, I think 80%. I actually looked at my metadata in Lightroom recently, and I think I've shot 40,000 images with that lens over the last few years, and as opposed to probably 20,000 of any other lens you care to name. So it's my absolute go-to lens. Highly recommended. Owen Howard just made a comment. Red Dot Forum did a live stream on the 24-70 where they compared it to 24-90. And and you can see the 24-90 is very sharp. I haven't used the 24-70. They are not in. I've had difficulty getting one for loan because they sell very quickly. I'm told it's excellent, but I'm also told you do get what you pay for. So the 24-90 is more expensive, but better. So again, the 24-70 is excellent and good value. The 24-90 is just that little bit better for a bit extra money. So I think that's a fair comment. Anyway, I'm rambling here. We should probably call it quits. We've gone a little bit over time. Thank you, Christian, so much for sharing your images with us. And I hope we've surprised a few people with some of those images. We didn't want to just show what you were expecting. We showed a few of those and then some different stuff. Definitely intended as inspiration in your own photography. Do check out Christian's gallery because it is superb, as I've said. 2 weeks time, I'm going to be doing another one of my webinars on taking better photos, which will be on focusing. That's on the 6th of October, I believe. So hopefully see some of you there. So from me, good evening, and thank you to Christian.
Yep. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Right. See you all later.